3 drones had come back damaged enough to be useful. The 4th came back whole, which made it dangerous. The Veyra Corridor window opened in 36 hours as Galen Pryce stepped toward the intact machine. And Kestrel found human scent beneath the rotor wash. He had time to decide the route was deliberate. Then a shooter tested the exact movement he used to shield Priya. What had the enemy learned before Galen had learned anything? The first round kicked gravel from the place Priya had occupied. Is less than #0. 4 is greater than. Galen pulled her behind the operator vehicle and pointed Elin toward the rear wheel before he had proof of anything except intent. Active strikes had made relocation impossible before first assessment. The drone sat untouched, its rotors winding down unevenly. Kestrel. The Dutch shepherd leaned into the leash, checked hard, then looked back. Warm machine dust carried fertilizer from the orchard edge. A person had crossed recently, but rotor wash had torn the scent apart. Person was here, Galen said. Direction is bad. Preserve the aircraft, Priya said. My decision, the route is useful, not trustworthy. Useful toward a launch source, he thought, or useful as a diversion. Deliberate did not mean understood. A second shot struck the vehicle. Cato's voice cut through the wash. Move. Elin, hold coverage. Priya, stay down. Galen, left side. Galen moved. He kept Kestrel behind the engine block and crossed the narrow lane beside the vehicle. Elin worked from the rear wheel, one hand pressed to her headset, and the other tapping twice against the case whenever a channel returned. East sector is alive, she said. Barely. Cheap fan in a hot room is less than #0. 4 is greater than. Keep it turning, Cato said. A man came through the dust beside the intact drone. He passed within arm's reach of it without looking down. His eyes stayed on the operator vehicle. Human probe, not recovery. Galen met him before he reached Elin. A forearm drove against Galen's throat. Gravel rolled under his boot. He turned with the impact, crowded the man into the vehicle, and trapped the hand searching between them. The man's breath struck hot against his cheek. Galen drove through his balance and folded him beside the tire. Is less than #0. 4 is greater than his reconstructed knee caught during the lateral recovery. White pressure climbed into his hip and cost him half a step. A second hostile broke from the orchard edge toward Priya. Right rear, Galen said. Seen, Cato answered. Hold your lane. Cato redirected 2 perimeter operators, instead of giving Galen the whole fight. Their fire and movement forced the second man behind a low earth bank. Priya raised her head once. The return bent toward us before it lost height. Launch source. Maybe. Maybe diversion. Priya kept her head below the wheel. I said keep it. I didn't say believe it. Kestrel's leash tightened. She ignored the man by the tire and swept her nose across the wash. Forward wait. A brief tongue flick. Then another check back. More than one crossing, Galen judged. No count. No roll. The second hostile rose behind the bank and angled around Priya's end of the vehicle. Galen saw him through the gap beneath the chassis and crossed the rear. The kneecap shortened his stride. He adjusted before it could expose her. The man reached for Priya. Galen knocked the arm aside and crowded him away from the wheel. Is less than #0. 4 is greater than. The hostile gave ground too easily. His eyes stayed on Galen's feet, then on the distance back to Priya. Observer, Galen said. A third figure withdrew along the orchard route, little more than a shoulder between the first trees. He did not fire. One hand rested against a trunk as he looked back, steady enough to be counting. Cato understood. No chase past the lane. Perimeter holds. Galen could have gained ground for 3 seconds. He would also have left Priya exposed. He stayed, drove the second man into the bank, and struck once. The man went still. Is less than #0. 3 is greater than. The observer disappeared among the trees. Elin's voice cut through the fading rotor noise. East sector steady, one eye open. One is enough, Cato said. The rotors stopped. Hard breathing filled the recovery lane. Kestrel returned to the orchard-facing side of the vehicle. She found a short human path through fertilizer-dark soil, then lost it beneath overlapping boots. Galen eased the leash instead of asking her to invent certainty. Partly real, he said. Priya looked from the drone to the orchard route. The return trace agrees for a distance. For a distance is expensive, is less than #0. 4 hashes greater than Cato came beside the vehicle. His attention went to Elin first. Coverage. 1 sector. The next strike may take it. He tapped 2 fingers against his vest. Then we move before it does. Assault element enters the orchard. Operator cell stays with the vehicle and keeps us covered. Galen watched the broken grass leading toward the trees. A true route could serve a false purpose. 2 echelons, he said. 2 echelons, Cato repeated. You and Kestrel with me. Priya and Elin hold the perimeter. Reserve stays back until I call it. Priya glanced at the aircraft she had chosen to preserve. Is less than #0. 4 hash is greater than the drone. Marked and guarded, Cato said. We are done standing where it returned. They moved. Elin shifted the surviving coverage load. Priya took only what she could carry without slowing them. Kestrel drank once, then faced the orchard as Galen shortened the leash. He had been right about the route. Its purpose still belonged to whoever had watched him choose whom to shield. Cato raised one hand and sent the assault element toward the orchard mouth. The first orchard row swallowed the recovery lane in 10 steps. Branches scraped Galen's sleeves and shut the open ground behind him. Is less than #0. 5 hash is greater than sound changed at once. Boots pressed into damp soil, old leaves brushed webbing, and every distant impact returned from stone. Cato moved the assault element through the center while Galen held the wall side with Kestrel. The coalition carrier idled at the perimeter, ready to move both echelons. Operator vehicle set, Priya said over the link. She remained outside with Elin. 4th return under guard. Drone noise rising. A blind corridor would force checkpoint crews to stop everything, leaving local farm traffic stacked in the open. Elin. 1 sector stable. The second keeps dropping, is less than #0. 4 hash is greater than. A faint double tap reached Galen through the channel as Elin worked the case. Her habit. 2 knuckles when a dead circuit came back. Restore it, Cato said. Reserve stays behind the carrier. The reserve element remained screened by the vehicle and whatever Elin could recover. Galen studied the tight rows. Broken twigs and pressed soil confirmed recent use. Canvas-covered equipment sat near the first wall with almost no one protecting it. Used sight, he said. Light defense. Purpose, Cato asked. Not enough yet. Priya answered, from the perimeter. He's less than #0. The hash is greater than. They are watching us harder than the equipment. The ground supported that. It did not explain why. At a gap in the old stonework, Kestrel shifted forward. The leash gave one clean pulse, then softened as her nose crossed the opening. She found a recent exit, lost it, returned, and checked back. Agricultural residue clung to the stones. Several sets of boots had passed through the same narrow place. Recent movement, Galen said. Multiple crossings, no clean count. Drone crew, Cato asked. More traffic than a simple crew needs. Cato tapped 2 fingers against his vest. He is less than #0. 4 hash is greater than center holds. Wall pair advances. Reserve stays. At the perimeter, Elin's voice broke through interference. Second sector is coming back, like a window with a hand over half the glass. Priya said, you have 3 seconds of clean view. I only need 2. The double tap came again. Through a break in the rows, Galen saw the reserve shift behind the carrier and vanish from the exposed stretch before the hostile drone view stabilized. A shot cracked beyond the wall. Soil jumped beside the lead pair. Another round sheared a branch at shoulder height and forced them back into the stone. Is less than #0. 5 is greater than Cato. Folded the pair behind cover. Position first, purpose second. The orchard had stopped being a place to inspect. It was a box closing around people. Galen moved Kestrel behind the stone shoulder. One narrow passage along the wall remained usable, though rounds clipped leaves above it. Passable lane, he said. Not clean. We do not take it yet. A hard strike sounded from the perimeter. The carrier engine dropped into a rough vibration Galen felt through the soil. Carrier hit, Priya reported. Mobility. Still running, Elin said. Not happily is less than #0. 3 is greater than, keep it running, keep the reserve hidden. 2 shots drove the center pair toward the open passage. A third landed behind them, close enough to throw wet soil across their backs. The hostile timing did not simply stop movement. It shaped it. Kestrel leaned toward the wall gap because the human path continued there. Galen shortened the leash. Exit continues. Safety unknown. Priya did not answer with approval. The drone layer just shifted with them. Cato looked once toward the perimeter, and then deeper into the orchard. Assault element stays compact. No one chases the equipment. Is less than #0. 4 is greater than. The carrier took another impact. A grinding knock joined the rough idle. Elin. Second sector steady static scraped the channel. The carrier is becoming a bad promise. Can it move? For now. A figure crossed 2 rows ahead and disappeared. Another appeared on the opposite side, long enough to fire and fall back. The assault element dropped behind trunks and wallstone. They were not trapped yet, but each forced move shortened the choices. At the perimeter, Priya's voice sharpened. Movement closing on our side. Elin answered before Cato could. I see it. Shift the set 6 feet toward the wheel. Leave me the cable. A scrape, a breath, then the double tap. The second sector held long enough for the reserve to move again. Galen checked the wall passage. Branches shook above it, while the center lane received enough fire to stop any push. The narrow path remained open in a way that looked less like mercy than measurement. Kestrel sampled the gap and checked back. Recent boots had passed. So had too many others. More than a drone crew came through, Galen said. The machines are sitting in daylight. We are the ones being moved. Is less than #0. 4 is greater than. Cato's gaze stayed on the wall gap. Then hold. The carrier shuddered behind them. Priya and Elin were exposed at the perimeter. Inside the orchard, the lead pair had nowhere left to move. Without taking the passage, the enemy had left open. Cato shifted the assault element tighter to the stone. Ambush is closing. A round struck the carrier hard enough to silence the engine for 1 beat. When it caught again, the knock had deepened. The first burst struck bark above the pinned pair and drove splinters across the wall gap. Is less than #0. 5 is greater than. Galen stayed low beside Kestrel, while the carrier's damaged engine hammered from the perimeter. The wall lane remained open as fire closed every other way out. Pin team, 2 rows in, Cato said. Half the reserve forward, 1 element stays. Elin's restored sector interrupted the hostile view over the reserve lane. Her voice came thin through interference. Second sector, flickering. Still ugly. A double tap sounded against her case. Still mine, she added. Kestrel leaned toward the wall gap, checked back, then returned to the same short path. Several crossings blurred the odor. Is less than #0. 4 is greater than fertilizer, and broken soil made the last few yards uncertain. Human movement continues, Galen said. Short distance. Cato pointed toward the pinned team. Take the link, bring them out. Galen moved along the orchard wall with Kestrel tight to his left. Compressed sound made every strike seem close enough to touch. One attacker shifted behind a trunk to block the gap. Another waited deeper in the row, patient enough to let the first contact fix Galen in place. The carrier coughed and dropped into a lower mechanical knock. Mobility is failing, Priya said. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than. Then we use what is left, Cato answered. Kestrel carried the path through the gap, then hesitated where boot traffic crossed twice. Galen stopped asking. She had connected recent movement to the pinned position. That was enough. The first attacker came from Branch Shadow, with his weight already moving forward. His shoulder struck Galen's chest and drove him into the old stone. The man wanted the gap closed, not Galen dead on the spot. Galen let the wall take part of the impact, caught the searching wrist between them, and crowded the man until neither had room for a clean swing. Is less than #0. 5# is greater than. Bark scraped Galen's sleeve. Hot breath hit his jaw. He turned the attacker into the stone and left him folded where he could no longer block the passage. Galen pushed off to recover sideways. His right knee answered late. The joint did not buckle. It failed to return the angle he expected. He squared his hips and stepped forward instead. Left option gone, he said. Cato understood. No lateral push. Pinned pair comes to you. Rounds clipped the wall above the trapped operators. Galen pulled the nearer man into the gap and sent him back along Kestrel's path. Is less than #0. 5# is greater than. The second operator stumbled after him, one hand clamped to his side. Elin's voice broke through. Reserve still hidden. Carrier has one move left, maybe less. Save it, Cato said. We do not spend people on the vehicle. The second attacker came behind the withdrawing operator. He did not try to seal the gap. He reached for the wounded man and used the rescue movement as cover. Galen saw him too late for a clean turn. He planted, accepted the bad angle, and took the collision square. Both men went into wet soil. The attacker tried to roll past Galen toward the wounded operator. Is less than #0. 5# is greater than. The knee burned when he shifted right. No correction came. He stayed on the line the joint allowed, trapped the man's arm against the ground, and held him there while the wounded operator cleared the wall gap. Soil slid under Galen's boot. The attacker found space and almost turned. Galen drove him back into the rut, struck once, and moved. Team out, he said. Not clear yet, Cato answered. A third hostile fired from deeper in the orchard but left the wall passage open. Galen saw the choice in what the man refused to close. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than. The fire kept the rescued operators moving along the same escape route, while someone farther back watched the perimeter vehicle and the people around it. Kestrel checked back again. Galen shortened the leash and did not send her farther. The carrier engine screamed. Metal answered with a flat crack. Carrier is done, Priya said. Confirmed, Cato asked. It moves 3 feet and punishes everyone inside. Elin said second sector is down to a slit. Reserve still has shadow. Cato kept the unspent element behind the orchard wall. Extraction on foot. Orchard edge. Now is less than #0. 4# is greater than. Galen pushed the rescued pair ahead and changed his path to protect the knee. He could still drive forward. Any quick correction to the side had become a debt. They reached the orchard edge under fire. The carrier sat crooked beside the perimeter vehicle, engine turning but no longer driving the wheels. One side panel had folded inward. It was finished. Priya and Elin were shifting the equipment they could carry. Elin held the headset crooked with one shoulder while she wound cable with the same precise half-turn each time, fast enough to keep the live channel from tangling. Is less than #0. 5# is greater than. Cato brought half the reserve across exposed ground and left the rest behind the wall. The rescued pair reached cover because Elin had kept the hostile view broken and because Cato had not emptied his last option. Beyond the orchard edge, a hostile transport moved along the service track, with 2 men beside it. They covered one another as they withdrew. One glanced past the disabled carrier toward Priya and Elin, then signaled the driver forward. The canvas-covered equipment inside the orchard remained untouched. Only transport in reach, Priya said, is less than #0. 4 is greater than the operator cell, the wounded, and the surviving assault element could not move together without it. Coverage was fading. Fire still followed them. Galen tested his knee and got no lateral answer. Then we take the vehicle. Cato looked from the withdrawing men to the reserve lane. We take it. 1 element stays separate. The hostile transport rolled toward the rail approach, while the team broke into pursuit. The hostile transport gained speed along the rail approach, canvas cracking over its rear frame. Galen ran from the orchard edge with Kestrel close, and the ruined carrier knocking itself quiet behind them. 1 withdrawing man kept pace beside the cab. Another used the rear corner for cover. Carrier status, Cato asked. Dead, Priya said. Operator vehicle cannot carry the team. Elin's reply came through static. Coverage is a candle in wind, still a candle. The wounded and the mobile sets were already moving toward the service track. Without the transport, the assault element would split on foot, while Priya and Elin remained exposed beside 2 useless vehicles. Commit the reserve, Galen said. The gap was opening. No, Cato answered. Half with us, 1 element stays separate. Vehicle will be gone. Then close with what we have. Galen disliked the lost speed. He also understood the value of people the enemy could not see. His knee lagged when the transport shifted across his path. So he abandoned the sideways cut and drove straight for the narrowing space between the vehicle and the rail embankment. Cabside, he said. Keep it moving slow. The rear hostile turned to meet him. Kestrel pulled toward transport, checked once in the tire dust, then returned to the same recent human odor. People had used the vehicle. Nothing in her body offered a destination. Canvas snapped above Galen as he reached the rear corner. He caught the frame and ran with the rough motion for 2 steps. The hostile struck down at his grip and tried to peel him away from the opening. Galen stayed attached long enough for Cato's half-element to close, then drove the man off the rear step and into the rail embankment. The cabside hostile saw the gap disappear and abandoned the vehicle instead of dying beside it. Do not chase, Cato said. Galen looked once at the withdrawing man. He chose the person over the truck. So do we, Cato said. Take the truck. The driver tried to pull away. Galen could not cut across the front without trusting the knee. So he worked along the vehicle's direction, reached the cab as Cato's element arrived, and forced the driver away from the controls. The transport rolled crooked, canvas booming, then stopped against the soft shoulder. Load, Cato said. The engine coughed but did not quit. Behind them, the carrier gave 1 final metallic grind and settled on its axle. Priya called the distance to the operator cell in clipped bursts. Elin answered while dragging the case, her cable looped over 1 forearm. A hostile round struck the road between them and the truck, throwing rail gravel across the wounded man's boots. He could not make the distance on foot. Neither could the operator, carrying the heavier battery case. The transport was no longer merely available. It was the only object in motion large enough to keep the team from breaking into separate targets. Galen took the rear opening and pulled the first wounded operator aboard, while Cato's half-element held the orchard edge. His knee trembled under the added weight. He shifted forward, not sideways, and kept the opening clear. The wounded went first. Priya and Elin brought the mobile set off the perimeter. The surviving salt element crowded beneath the canvas. Cato left 1 reserve element outside the transport chain.
Dust hung inside the truck. Bare benches, empty water containers, boot scuffs. No map, recording, or device explained why it had been left within reach. Kestrel stepped to the rear opening and leaned toward the cab. Galen let her sample once. "Recent use," he said. "Nothing beyond that." Elin wedged the coverage case against the bench with her boot, then tapped twice when the surviving channel returned. "One sector breathing, the other is considering a career change." "How long?" Cato asked. "Long enough to make one bad choice." The engine caught under coalition hands. The transport lurched toward the rail approach, carrying both echelons, the wounded and the remaining mobile equipment. Its motion made them visible as one group, but no other vehicle could move them before Elin's signal failed. Cato stayed near the rear opening, tracking the separate reserve as it moved on a parallel line beyond sight. "Reserve stays apart," he said. Priya braced against the canvas frame as the road split. One route bent into rail cut. The other took longer ground before the team could restore useful coverage. "Rail cut is faster," she said. Elin listened to the fading tone. "The long route outlives the signal." Galen watched the ruts, the transport dust, and Kestrel's quiet posture. The captured truck was still an enemy vehicle. The road was still an enemy-shaped choice. Delay remained worse. "Rail cut," he said. "For speed, not faith." Cato looked toward the driver. "Rail cut, separate reserve remains off the truck." The transport turned. Railbed vibration climbed through the floor and into Wilgain's knee. Priya watched the orchard fall behind. "They left the equipment," she said. "Again. Maybe they could not carry it. Maybe they did not need to." Elin's tone weakened but held. "Still alive," she said. Cato answered, "Then restore it before it dies." Canvas cracked above them as the captured transport committed to rail cut. Rail cut tightened round the captured transport, rail embankment on one side and broken farm ground on the other. The engine vibration climbed through Galen's damaged knee. Kestrel stood at the rear opening, nose working through fuel, fertilizer, and old dust. Her weight shifted toward rail cut. The leash drew tight for half a second. Then she checked back. "Partial," Galen said. Priya looked past him toward the rutted road. Fresh vehicle movement here too. Elin's coverage, tone thinned beside the mobile equipment. She pinned the headset against her shoulder and tightened the cable in the same neat half-turns she had used in the orchard. "Second sector is dropping again," she said. "Rail cut gets us to the next useful position before it dies." Kestrel's incomplete interest. Fresh tire cuts. A clock attached to Elin's shrinking signal. 3 facts, all pointing the same way. Priya heard the decision forming. They may share one cause. "Do you have another route?" Galen asked. "No, I have a warning." At the fork, Elin took the portable coverage load and an escort onto surface road while the captured transport held rail cut. Cato kept the preserved reserve separate from both. Speed kept the wounded moving. Rail cut gave Galen the shortest ground between the team and the next place Elin could work. "Hold rail cut," he said. "Surf's road stays parallel." Kestrel had given him uncertainty. The split was his. The captured transport entered the deeper cut while the surface road element moved beyond the low ground. Galen tracked Elin through broken voice traffic. Her team kept both sectors alive in short bursts. "Second sector is ugly," she said. "Still covering the reserve." A faint double tap reached him through the channel. Priya braced beside the rear frame. "Too much agreement bothers me." It should. The first attack did not hit rail cut. It struck surface road, one clipped warning, metal impact, then voices stepping over one another. "Contact, surface road." The driver cut hard at the call. Cato hit the transport frame. His shoulder dropped and stayed close to his body afterward, but his voice remained clean. "Driver holds. Reserve does not close. Galen, keep the main group moving. Another impact sounded from surface road. Elin changed channels. They are walking the second sector down. Can you hold it? Cato asked. For a little. The transport slowed over broken ground. Galen's knee refused the sideways correction when the vehicle lurched. He caught the canvas rail and drove his weight forward instead. Elin's signal broke, returned, then broke again. Priya looked at Galen. She did not say she had warned him. Indicators were linked, he said. Probably. The word left room for error. The attack did not. Galen dropped from the captured transport when the surface road link opened for one clear second. Dust struck his face. Elin's element was farther down the parallel road, exposed by the work that kept Cato's reserve hidden. Abandoned equipment sat along the verge. The hostile shooters ignored it and moved toward the coverage station. Move the wounded forward, Cato ordered. His injured arm stayed tight against his body. Reserve remained separate. Galen crossed on the path his knee allowed, straight and hard. One attacker rose from low ground to block him from Elin's position. Galen met the collision, drove the man off the road, and left him tangled against the drainage lip. A second hostile ran past an easier equipment case and reached for the coverage controls. Galen hit him from the side before he could tear the set free. The impact spun both men across the road. Galen lost the angle when his knee lagged, but the delay boy bought two operators time to pull clear. The hostile disengaged rather than spend himself over the machine. Elin, Galen said. Her voice came thin through the link. Second sector still open. The double tap sounded once more. A new impact struck the mobile cell. The channel filled with a scrape, a breath, and silence. Elin? No answer. The second sector remained alive for 3 more seconds, long enough for Cato's preserved reserve to move unseen. Then, the tone vanished. Coverage went dark. Galen reached the station and found Elin beside the case, one hand still hooked in the cable loop she had kept from tangling all morning. The work had stopped with her. Cato's voice came over the link. Status. Elin is down. Second sector is gone. A pause. Then, command returned. Extract what remains. Keep moving. The surface road survivors pulled away in pieces. Galen kept the operators between the damaged position and the captured transport while fire followed them. His lagged with every position change. He adjusted before it could strand him. One attacker tried to close on the last operator leaving Elin's station. Galen cut across the man's path, took the impact against his shoulder, and forced him into the ditch. The operator reached the truck. The hostile withdrew. Cato arrived with his injured shoulder held close, face pale and jaw set. Reserve stays separate. Main group loads now. Priya climbed in after the surviving coverage team. She looked once toward the silent surface road position. We chose from 3 signs, Galen said. We chose as if they were 3. Kestrel remained inside, head low, breathing steady. Her checkback had been correct. She had never promised route, safety, or meaning. The driver pushed out of rail cut as the surface road survivors folded into the moving group. Elin's channel stayed empty. No replacement coverage would reach them before the corridor window. Galen watched the untouched equipment shrink behind them beside the dead sector. The enemy had spent people to kill the operator who kept a second view alive. He had chosen speed and control. His fighting had saved part of the team after the choice. It had not changed the empty channel. The captured transport left rail cut with the surviving surface road element folded into its wake. It did not stop. Dust rolled through the open canvas, and the dead channel stayed dark beside Priya's working set. Kestrel lay against the rear bench, breathing hard but evenly. Galen kept the leash loose. She had no more information to give. Cato sat near the opening with his injured shoulder braced against his body. Each turn shifted him, but his orders remained short. Next, route. Priya watched the remaining channels pulse and fade. We keep sorting attacks by who is present. Galen looked at the empty place where Elin's voice had been. Sort, what they were doing. Recovery lane, orchard perimeter, surface road. Priya touched each surviving readout in turn. Same mobile capability each time. Hardware stayed. Twice, the truck too. Outside, drone noise moved with the convoy. Galen's knee answered every rut with a dull delay. He had treated the signs at Rael Kut as separate because each had been credible. Priya had challenged the connection. He had kept ownership of the split. Your warning was right, he said. Part of it. I saw one cause, I did not see the correct road. That was enough to alter the next choice. The transport crossed rough farm ground, while Cato's reserve moved on another line beyond sight. Priya listened to the sequence again, not the names. The intact drone survived the first attack, she said. The orchard equipment sat in the open. They gave us this truck. Then they hit Elin. Galen watched the road pass beneath the rear opening. They spend force on whoever can keep the corridor from going blind. Cato asked, what does removing that capability buy them? Priya answered without looking up. The freight movement needs drone cover to blind and suppress the corridor checkpoints. Mobile counter-drone teams can strip that cover, restore observation, and let ground interdiction stop the movement. The transport hit a rut. Kestrel lifted her head, then settled again. Galen followed the chain. The machines created the cover. People like Elin could take it away. A truck could be replaced. Her second sector could not. Replacement coverage, Cato asked. After the 36-hour window, Priya said. Too late. A pulse of hostile drone noise thickened overhead. The driver bent the truck away from an exposed stretch without slowing. Damaged equipment shifted beneath the canvas. Galen caught a case with one boot and kept his weight off the knee's missing side. Continuing to recover devices would keep presenting the same people in predictable places. Fourth drone stays guarded, he said. We stop following what they leave. Cato looked at Priya. Can the surviving set keep one corridor path visible while moving? Yes, not the whole corridor. Enough for the turn? For now. Cato leaned toward the driver. Redirect. We hunt the cell that keeps applying the cover. The truck began a wide turn. The separate reserve changed line farther out, still unmerged. Road vibration shifted under Galen's boots as the convoy abandoned the recovery route. The turn threw the wounded against the canvas bench. Galen caught one operator by the vest before the man slid into the coverage case. Cato shifted his good hand to the rear frame and kept calling spacing to the unseen reserve. No one had room to sit with Elin's death. Her absence appeared as work. Priya monitoring 2 channels alone, a battery case left unopened because the second set no longer existed. Cato asking one person for reports that had come from 2. Beyond the canvas, farm service roads crossed between irrigation pipes and weathered concrete culverts. Any one of them could hide a short human move beneath the drone wash. Priya closed Elin's dead channel and moved the surviving set to another circuit. Her thumb paused once on the empty switch before she continued. Future queues stay separate until we test the cause, Galen said. And compared before you own the route, Priya replied. He nodded. Fair. Cato heard them. Do it while moving. The transport completed the turn and accelerated. The new line carried them away from abandoned machines and toward the people still shaping the road. Coverage noise thinned, returned, and thinned again. Priya kept one sector alive. Cato issued intervals with his good arm braced across his body. Galen checked Kestrel's pause, breathing, and focus. She remained tired and functional. He gave her water and left the harness loose. Ahead, pale agricultural dust lay across the ground in irregular bands. A second movement seemed possible along the flank, though he had no proof. "Contaminated ground ahead," he said. "Possible side movement." Priya listened beneath the drone wash. "The noise is masking something. I cannot place it yet." Cato answered at once. "Reserve holds its separate line. Main group dismounts on confirmation." The convoy changed formation without stopping. The fourth drone remained behind under guard. The living threat moved somewhere ahead, protected by noise and a narrowing clock. The captured transport took the next bend toward the contaminated ground. The convoy left the firmer road and rolled onto the contaminated track. Pale agricultural powder lay in deliberate fans across the ruts, too fresh and even for farm drift. Drone wash thickened overhead. Human fire answered from two directions, one group pacing the truck and another moving beyond the flank lane. Galen brought Kestrel down only after the transport slowed enough to keep her work short. She took 10 yards with her nose low, leash firm, then hesitated where chemical trace and boot traffic crossed. Her breathing shortened. The path bent toward the flank lane, but the checkback came almost at once. "Partial," Galen said. He let her confirm 3 more steps and stopped her before effort became obedience. "That is enough." Kestrel returned to his leg, still willing. The ground had outlasted her nose. Priya listened from the transport. "The drone note is too flat over the track. Something is moving under it." Cato held his injured shoulder against the frame and pointed with his good hand. "Reserve advances 1 section, the rest stays out." Part of the reserve shifted without joining the convoy. Galen watched the flank lane. Branches moved beneath the rotor wash where the wind did not reach. Priya caught it a second later. Human movement under the high-note flank lane. Galen turned away from Kestrel's broken scent picture and moved toward the branches. The first hostile pair opened fire across the contaminated track while a second pair worked the flank lane. Their timing kept the convoy facing the obvious threat. Galen followed the quieter movement. His knee resisted the first lateral cut. He shortened the angle and drove forward along the rut instead. Cato sent part of the reserve against the visible shooters and kept the rest behind the truck. "Do not close the whole track," he said. "Make the flank move." Priya's voice came through the drone wash. "Closing on your lane." Galen saw the coordinator a second later. The man never shouted. He touched 2 fingers to his chest, shifted 1 step, and the other fighters changed position around him. He held back while a younger hostile crossed ahead, protecting the person who kept the flank coherent. Galen let the first man pass, behind a fold in the ground. Then he entered the coordinator's path before the formation could reset. The collision drove air from both of them. The man tried to turn Galen toward the open track, where the other shooters could see. Galen stayed close, used the rut to keep their bodies below the exposed edge, and forced him down against hard soil. His knees shook when he rose. The coordinator reached toward his chest again, trying to signal the flank. Galen trapped the hand against the ground and ended the gesture. The fighters beyond him lost the small corrections that had kept them synchronized. One hostile broke toward the convoy. Another withdrew without covering the same ground twice. Priya heard the change before Galen could see all of it. The high note is moving. Their side group is pulling out. Cato released another fraction of the reserve, enough to press the withdrawal without emptying the hidden line. The convoy gained room. Galen rose from the coordinator and saw a directing figure farther beyond the lane. The man was already pulling the remaining fighters toward industrial ground. He did not turn back for the coordinator. He moved the people he still had and abandoned the position that no longer paid. Galen pursued. His first straight steps were good. Then the track bent around chemical mud and demanded the lateral recovery his right knee no longer gave him. The joint lagged. His boot slid. The distance opened. The directing figure reached a service vehicle. Before climbing in, he pulled one wounded fighter by the harness and shoved another toward the wheel. He preserved the people who could still move the group. The vehicle left before Galen could close. Galen stopped where the track narrowed. Kestrel could not repair the lost window. He had ended her work before overload, and the contamination had finished what remained. Beyond the low rise, Marrow concrete works offered those conveyor shadows and thick walls close enough for a smaller cell to disappear inside. The withdrawing vehicle turned toward it only after the flank had collapsed. Galen returned to the convoy with his knee stiffening. Kestrel drank from his hand, then settled inside the transport. He did not ask her to work again. Cato kept the reserve divided as the convoy followed the withdrawal. "What did we take?" he asked. Priya listened to the changing drone layer. Their side group, some of their reach. And what did they keep? Enough people to make the plant hurt. Marrow concrete works began to vibrate through the roadbed before its outer structures filled the view. Movement collected along the plant edge. The reduced cell spread just far enough to make the concrete and drone noise seem occupied by more people than Galen could see. Cato's good hand closed around the transport frame. Reserve remains split. Main group prepares for outer contact. The first impacts struck near the plant approach before the truck fully stopped. Galen stepped down on the leg that still answered cleanly. A conveyor started somewhere inside, its low mechanical pulse carrying through the toe soles of his boots. Behind him, Kestrel stayed in the transport. Ahead, the cell had traded open ground for concrete and shorter distances. Outer fire reached the convoy before its wheels stopped below Marrow concrete works. Impacts struck concrete near both approaches, and drone noise pressed low over the plant shell. Galen moved with the entry group along the outer route, while Kestrel held close beside him. Rail face offered the cleanest ground, hard cover, and the shortest path inside. It also matched every choice he made when speed and control narrowed together. "Rail face," he said. Fire answered from the concrete edge almost at once. A lighter burst touched surface gallery and stopped. Cato remained with the preserved reserve, injured shoulder fixed against his vest. He could time the next move. He could not lead the physical entry. "Hold both options," he ordered. "Reserve moves on my count." Priya's listened beneath the broad drone note. One layer stayed steady over rail face. Another rose and fell over surface gallery in a rhythm too regular to be empty. "Second group under the noise," she said. "They are walking with the high pulse." Galen watched dust kick from rail face. The obvious fire invited the route he already preferred. The quieter approach held footsteps beneath sound instead of cover. The cell had learned how Galen solved ground. Priya had never made the final approach call, where they could watch her do it. Priya pulled one of Galen's repaired pencils from the strap on the surviving coverage set. She did not write. She listened, rolled it once between her fingers, then snapped it against the metal edge. The two halves dropped into the dust. "The orchard did not lead them here," she said. "It showed them who kept the team moving." That was enough. The plant had become useful only after the flank failed. What the enemy carried into it was a picture of Galen making the route call and everyone else adjusting around him. Another burst struck the rail face cover and forced the entry group lower. Galen felt the old answer forming: take the shortest ground, absorb the obvious fire, move before the enemy closed it. He stopped before speaking. Priya's head turned with the shifting drone layer. Verves Gilari. Galen crossed in front of the entry group and pointed them toward surface gallery. He stayed on the exposed side while they changed direction. The handoff happened in motion, with no room for a speech. Cato saw it. Service gallery confirmed, reserve weights. The entry group broke from rail face. Human fire tried to follow, but the fighters hidden under the drone note moved a beat late. Priya had called the gap before they could close it. One hostile stepped from the surface gallery edge, expecting Galen to remain committed to rail face. Galen met him outside the entry path and drove him behind a concrete barrier. The man tried to recover toward the gallery opening. Priya called the timing. He has company moving behind him. Cato raised his good hand. Now. A measured section of the reserve crossed the outer route and hit the second man as he left cover. The first attacker lost the support he expected. Galen forced him away from the opening, and the entry group reached surface gallery intact. Priya lifted the set and the broad drone wash split into two uneven bands. For the first time, Galen could hear boots under the machines. The entry group used that second of clarity to cross the last open strip. A hostile at rail face fired into empty concrete, still working from the route Galen had first named. Another tried to turn towards surface gallery and found Cato's reserve already between him and the opening. Heavier fire struck the abandoned rail face approach. The hostile cell had committed against Galen's usual answer and found fewer bodies there. Cato lowered his arm and braced the injured shoulder again. Most of the reserve remained available. Kestrel carried the outer route to the surface gallery edge, where pale alkaline dust began beyond a hard line on the floor. Her stride shortened. She tested the boundary once, sneezed, and stopped with her weight back. Galen loosened the leash. She stays outside. Kestrel did not push again. The dust burned her nose and closed the last part of her work as plainly as a locked door. Galen placed her with the outer support and loosened the harness. She held the route behind them, alert but no longer trying to cross. Cato stayed outside with the reserve. His shoulder had removed him from the lead position, not from command. "Reserve holds until the interior commits," he said. Priya moved beside Galen at the surface gallery threshold, carrying the surviving coverage set and no replacement pistol. Drone noise flattened against the concrete. The second human group she had found was now displaced outside, visible to Cato's people. Inside, the gallery echoed with machinery and muffled movement. No third approach existed. Rail face remained under heavy fire. Surface gallery opened into alkaline shadow without Kestrel, without Cato at the front, and without Galen owning the route. His knee answered the concrete vibration with a slow pulse. He checked the entry group, then looked back once. Kestrel stayed at the boundary. Cato held the reserve. Priya kept her eyes on the route she had called. "Move," Cato said. Galen crossed first on Priya's line. The rest of the human entry followed through surface gallery. Behind them, the reserve remained outside the enemy's first commitment. Ahead, the plant interior closed around their footsteps. Surface gallery opened into outer gallery, a concrete throat where footsteps returned twice. Galen crossed first on Priya's route, the assault element close behind him. Alkaline grit coated the floor. Fire still struck rail face, the approach they had abandoned. Priya carried the surviving coverage set against her chest. Its broken tone pulsed beneath the drone wash. "Outer group moving toward us," she said. "Their cover is thinning here." Outside, Cato answered through interference. "Reserve takes the secondary group. Entry keeps moving." Kestrel stayed beyond the dust boundary with assigned support. Galen heard no leash hardware behind him, no claws on concrete. She was out of the interior. Two hostiles crossed the outer gallery to fold against the entry. One tried to pin Priya against a concrete pillar, while the other moved for the gallery mouth. The assault element caught the second man. Galen met the first. The attacker drove him toward Priya's set. Galen took the impact on his shoulder, turned the man away from the equipment, and forced him into the pillar. Priya shifted left without losing the signal. His support is outside. Cato released part of the reserve. Short reports followed. The fire at the gallery mouth broke apart, and the attacker in front of Galen looked toward the sound for half a second. Galen used the hesitation to drive him away from Priya's path. The assault element took custody of the space behind him. "Outer gallery open," Cato said. "Advance." The reserve had removed the deficit without emptying itself. Galen led the entry down. The floor dropped from outer gallery onto dust floor. Concrete vibration traveled through Galen's boots. Fine alkaline powder lifted under every step, roughening his breath and turning the next 30 feet into pale motion. Priya raised the coverage set above the dust. Their drone layer is collapsing inward. The remaining hostiles came through the powder in disciplined pushes, trying to crowd Priya before her reed became usable. One struck the center of the assault element. 2 operators contained him, while a second fighter cut toward Priya. Galen moved to intercept. His right knee caught on the turn. He tried the lateral recovery that had been failing since the orchard. The leg folded enough to cost him the inside position. The attacker slipped past his shoulder and reached Priya's side. Galen drove forward along the one line the knee still gave him. He caught the man from behind, pulled him away from the coverage set, and hit the floor with him. Dust filled Galen's mouth. The attacker twisted toward Priya again. Galen held him in place until an assault operator arrived and dragged the man clear. Galen rose low and late. Pain climbed into his hip. Stable lateral recovery was gone. Priya wiped dust from the display with her sleeve. Control Bay is carrying the remaining signal. Another hostile tried to keep the dust floor closed. The assault element forced him behind to support and opened a path forward. Galen did not take point by reflex. He let the operator with the clean legs move first, while he followed on the side his knee could support. A figure withdrew through the powder toward Control Bay. Davor had run out of distance to shape. He was pulling the last pressure around himself. Control Bay held the final organized resistance. Low machinery vibration ran through the housings. Priya entered behind the assault element and worked the surviving set until the drone wash separated into 2 audible bands. 2 positions, she said. Left side with the assault group. Davor is crossing to the controls. The assault element turned toward the first position. Priya's red exposed a second hostile moving behind the housing, and 1 operator intercepted him before he could reach her. Davor came through the remaining interference himself. He had no outer group, no flank coordinator, and no modeled entry left to spend. He looked past Galen toward Priya and the set. Leave the machine. Take the operator. It was an allocation. Galeson stepped between them. Davor closed fast and drove him against the control housing. Galen's knee denied the sidestep. The lost angle put his bad leg against metal and gave Davor the stronger position. Galen stopped searching for the movement he no longer owned. He narrowed his stance, protected the knee, and worked from the pressure already on him. Breath shortened between them. Davor tried to turn him aside and reach Priya. Across Control Bay, Priya called the last shift in the hostile drone cover. The assault element used the opening and silenced the remaining position. Human voices replaced the broad mechanical wash. Davor heard it and glanced toward the sound. Galen drove straight, drawing him away from the controls and away from Priya. Davor recovered and forced Galen back into the housing. The knee failed again, taking his balance and dropping him to one hand. Galen rose on the leg that still worked and let Davor close until distance stopped helping either man. They struck the bay wall together. Davor tried to peel away toward Priya. Galen kept him against the concrete, denied the turn, and used the last clean forward step his knee allowed. Davor went down hard. He reached toward the control bank. Galen stopped him and held him there. Davor did not rise. The drone wash over Control Bay broke into uneven fragments. Priya kept the surviving set alive while the assault element secured the last human positions. Outside, Cato's reserve reported the secondary group finished and the gallery held. Status inside, Cato asked. Daver down, Galen said. Remaining cell contained. Coverage? Priya listened to the set. Corridor cover is broken. The movement window has not opened. Galen tried to move toward the exit at the head of the group. His knee refused the first change of direction and left him braced against the control housing. An assault operator passed him and took the lead without comment. Field position? Cato asked. Not sustained point. Understood. Bring the set out. Coverage reset now. Priya lifted the equipment. Galen took one side of the load. The assault element moved ahead through control bay toward dust floor. Elin remained dead. One mobile defense site remained lost. The surviving set could break the corridor cover, but people still had to restore observation before the clock closed. Galen followed Priya out on the straight line, his knee still allowed. The mobile coverage reset began before the entry group finished leaving the plant. Priya carried the surviving set into the open work area, while operators moved equipment clear of the alkaline dust. Galen followed on the leg that still accepted straight ground. Cato stood beside the reset position with his injured shoulder fixed close. Coverage first, he said. Window closes in 12 minutes. Priya connected the surviving set to the remaining field equipment. The empty channel beside her stayed dark. Elin's cable loops had always lain flat and even beside the case. The loose replacement coil caught under Priya's boot until she stopped and rewound it herself. One sector returning, Priya said. The lost site stays lost. Can the corridor hold? Cato asked. With the surviving set and the reserve repositioned, it will be thinner. Make it hold. Priya had to brace the case against the captured transport because one latch had failed. Galen steadied the frame while an operator ran the surviving lead to the roadside mast. The dead second lead lay coiled beside it, clean and useless. Cato directed the reserve vehicles into staggered positions with his good hand, forcing the remaining set across ground that Elin's two-sector layout had once divided between separate teams. The tone returned unevenly, failed once, then carried across the corridor. Teams shifted batteries and cases by hand. Galen took a case from an operator, changed his stance when the knee objected, and brought it to Priya. The missing capability had a name: Second Sector Mobile Coverage. No one present could replace it at the same level. Priya worked through the final minutes while Cato allocated the surviving teams. The coverage tone settled into a steady pulse. Checkpoint view is back, she said. Drone cover is gone. Cato checked the time. Window closed. Engines outside the reset area changed from emergency movement to ordinary repositioning. The freight movement had lost its protected interval. One mobile defense site remained unavailable, and the corridor held with less depth than it had before the fourth drone returned. A portable shift board leaned against the captured transport. The board still carried dust from the plant. Galen wiped enough of it away to read the names, then stopped. Cleaning the whole surface would not restore the missing card or the lost site. His knee tightened while he stood there, forcing him to lean one hand against the transport frame until it passed fast. Galen read the assignments while keeping weight off his right leg. His card remained under sustained point duty. He removed it. The empty space looked accurate. Galen placed his card under field lead. The new position kept him close to the moving teams without requiring the lateral recovery his knee no longer had. Cato saw the card while checking the coverage tone. Field lead holds the mobile groups together. That is the work. Cato moved one marker beside Galen's card and returned to the reset. Command remained where it had been. Priya came from the coverage set with dust on her sleeves and the dead channel still beside the live one. Cato handed her a fresh shift card. Next training and readiness cycle, he said. First approach call is yours. Priya read it. First call, not every call. Correct. She placed the card under approach responsibility. Galen shifted 2 team cards beneath hers. Mixed ground. Priya moved 1 card to another starting line. And an approach you dislike. Most useful kind. Cato checked the board. Run it under field lead. Report through command. An operator returned an empty cable reel to the wrong case. Priya took it, checked the label, and placed it beside the unfilled second sector slot. 1 position remained open, where Elin's second sector operator should have been. Cato marked the gap instead of filling it with a convenient name. Second sector mobile coverage, he said. Capability unavailable. Priya left the space open. Kestrel waited beside the outer vehicle, away from the reset equipment and plant dust. Galen knelt on his good side, removed her harness, and checked each paw for alkaline grit. She drank, shook once, and settled on the mat while he worked a damp cloth through the coat along her chest and legs. Priya returned the surviving equipment to its cases. Cato teleassigned the reserve to support the thinner corridor line. Galen stood carefully and carried Kestrel's harness to the storage hook. Coverage stable, Priya said. Shiftboard, Cato asked. Posted, Galen answered. Cato looked once at the assignments. Execute. Priya took the first approach packet for the next readiness cycle. Galen collected the field lead cards and handed movement assignments to the waiting operators. Cato stayed beside the coverage set, taking reports. Kestrel rested with water beside her. Elin's channel remained empty. The lost site remained off the board. Galen adjusted the first team's start time. Priya marked their approach line, and the operators carried the remaining equipment to the vehicles.